before spring was part of its name, what was the season called? And the answer is Lent.
Did not know.
Yeah, so before spring was called spring, it was called Lent in the Old English. Starting in the 14th century, that time of year was called springing time, a reference to plants springing from the ground. In the 15th century, that got shortened to springtime, and then further shortened in the 16th century to just spring.
That makes sense.
Was it called Lent? Is that any relation to the
Must
religious?
have a religious connection, right? It must be related to
It has
Like
to.
the beginning.
basically the
Got it,
season
yeah.
starts on Ash Wednesday, right? So
Right.
after Fat Tuesday.
Interesting.
It makes a lot of sense. The
Yeah.
religious. I wonder which came first, though.
Right.
Oh, right.
Catholic Lent, or spring being called Lent,
that's a
and
good
then
point.
Catholic named it Lent because it happened in the springtime.
Or did they call spring?
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
Right.
Who knows which came
Good
first,
question.
the chicken or the egg? Never know.
So I did find out that the fall and spring equinoxes are the only two times during the year when the sun rises due east and sets due west.
Yep. And it's when we have 12 hours a day and 12 hours of night too. That's why it's called the equinox, right? It's the point when we're in between we're in between the solstices. So
Equinoxes.
equinoxes, sure. And in the winter solstice, right, we have the least amount of daylight and the most amount of darkness. And in the summer solstice, it's the opposite, right? We have the most sunlight.
Now, one other thing I read, and maybe you can explain this, I'm not really sure how to visualize this. It says, on the first day of spring, a person at the North Pole would see the sun skimming across the horizon.
First
What
day
does
of
that
spring.
mean? Would they see it actually moving throughout the spring to summer period? It says beginning 6 months of uninterrupted daylight. So I'm wondering if it just means you're going to see the sun the whole time, but it's just kind of moving across?
Yeah, I guess that's right, because so it's like, oh my gosh, so as the Earth is orbiting the sun and reapproaching like the spring position, right? So right on the vernal equinox is going to be the moment when you start to see some of that light. And so I guess on that day you would just, the position of the sun would be right on the horizon. And then as you
Okay.
continued into summer,
For the entire day, so you would see it just moving throughout the entire
you would see
day.
it, right, in the spring you would see it just on the horizon, but then each day after that it would get slightly higher in the
and
sky.
lower, yeah.
It'd be really
Right?
cool to see.
And then it would go back down once you hit the summer solstice. It would start moving back down until you hit the fall equinox, at which point it would disappear again.